Welcome to the presidential debate for the 2021 Students' Union elections.
Let's start with introductions. My name is Callum Mitchell and I am the former President Surrey. You may have seen me in the 2019-2020 year, and I'm with
Catherine. So my name's Catherine Harper. I am the Deputy Vice-Chancellor at UCA, and I'm here because I guess it's really important for us to value that relationship between the Students' Union and the university.
Yeah, thank you. So, on to you, Catherine.
So today's debate, or this evening's debate, is really a chance for you to meet the candidates for both Kent and Surrey, have some set questions set to them, and then also have the opportunity to ask your own live questions and really get to know who might be representing you.
So a little about the role. The presidents work full-time for 1 year with students and your representatives. Having previously been in the role, you can expect to work with a different range of people. So whether this be working face-to-face with university staff or students, or maybe in meetings, you'll work on many different unique projects throughout the whole of the year, and it's definitely not a quiet year.
Great, Callum, thank you. And the structure of tonight's debate is that we'll be asking 5 set questions tonight, and those have been submitted by students. After each question, there will be 5 minutes for answers and for follow-ups from the audience, and you're able to comment on the questions on Facebook Live or to write them on question slips if you're watching from one of our campus's watch parties.
Thank you. So now on to our candidates. So we'll go first to the president for the candidates for President Kent. So first we have Sol, and then Admire Nkube, and then on to President Surrey we have Gabriel Min and Rafael Williams. So each candidate is now going to have 1 minute to introduce themselves. We're going to start with the Kent candidates and over first to Sol.
Hello everyone, so my name is Sol. I am an international student. I'm originally from Norway. I've been studying here for 3 years and I'm currently in my 3rd year of fine art at the Canterbury campus. I'm not really, sorry, I get tongue-tied when I try to introduce myself. But yeah, I'm quite an active person when it comes to activism. I've always been interested in, social justice and things like that. And I feel like this, sorry. Yeah, I will, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sol. So on to the next Kent candidate, Admire.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Admire Nkube, and I'm the current President Kent. And I'm very delighted that I've been representing students for the past year. And it has been a very challenging year. However, I would like to continue supporting students so that to ensure that all the decisions made and all their voices and priorities are heard. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Admire. So now on to the President Surrey candidates. First up, we have Gabriel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriel Min. I'm an international student from Seattle, and I study graphic communications on the UCA Farnham campus. I'm currently also the digital assistant at the SU. And if you're from Farnham, you've most likely seen me playing pool at the Glass House, as that is what I end up doing every weekend. I'm running for this position because I have been a course rep for the past 2 years, and I really enjoyed being able to find out what students need and want, and I would like to continue that with the presidency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on to the final Surrey candidate, Rafael.
Hi, I'm Rafael Williams, but please call me Raf because a lot of people, including my mum, like to slip it up a lot of times. I am a 3rd year film production student based in London, and yeah, I just really want to make a difference I've been doing a lot of activism and working in, like, I guess, politics for a while. When I was doing NCS, I was in the youth board where we did a lot of changes for, like, just the service whole round. So, you know, if you went canoeing, that's, you know, thanks to me. So you're welcome. And I've been a course rep for 3 years here. And the thing that really struck a chord to me about doing this is that a lot of people who I knew from the start on a bunch of other courses had this passion and this drive and really wanted to go and do something with their craft, but it just kind of fizzled away. And I think there's a lot of issues that we need to tackle here in order to go and get the uni up to a standard where people can get their money's worth, essentially, because we're paying for it. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and excited to go and present my manifesto to you guys.
Thanks, Raf. So thank you first to every one of our candidates for taking part in the debate tonight. Just to let you know, you can read all of the candidates' bios and manifestos online at ucasu.com. And now to go into tonight's debate. So we'll be going through the questions. I'll ask the question and then come to a random order for the candidates. So first question. What do you see your greatest challenge if elected as president? So we're going to come over to the Kent candidates first and direct this first question to Admire.
The greatest challenge, I think, is going to be COVID again this year. And because I believe that COVID is going to be with us for a very long time. It is not just for last year or this year. It's going to be for a few years to come. And with that, the university need to adapt to cater for the students. So, and the biggest challenge is going to be finding that solution that is going to work for everyone. Because if a student is paying £9,000 every year and that they're not getting the satisfaction of the education, for example, using studio spaces and in a workshop, that is not going to be right for the students. So that is going to be the greatest challenge this year, because this challenge is going to affect the years to come, and it's something very important that needs to be done. Yeah, so that's my answer to that question.
Thank you very much, Admire. On to Sol.
Thank you. So I feel like the biggest challenge will be to actually get the students more involved and engaged in the student union. I feel like a lot of students aren't quite aware of the fact that the student union is an actual separate entity from the university itself, and that they are there specifically by students for students. I feel like a lot of students often feel like there's nothing they can do about certain issues, or they aren't aware that they could potentially take it up with the student union. And, you know, I would work to actually create a strong relationship with the students and the union. And then the second bridge would be to actually have it acknowledged by the management and the people who run the university. You know, they are used to things running a certain way, and speaking from experience, they aren't fond of spending what they feel like is unnecessary funds. But I am persistent and I'm stubborn and loud, and if elected, you know, I will not be afraid to push for the changes that the students would benefit from, and I would try and make the management realize that the student union really is worth spending time and effort on. Thank you.
Thanks, Sol. So on to the Surrey candidates now. If anyone would like me to repeat the question, please just say. So first, on to Gabriel.
Hiya. So the biggest challenge that I see for being a president is that we are only one person, and in that way, it's extremely hard to adequately represent a whole student body. Myself, I am Black, I am queer, I'm an international student, and those are the identities that I possess, and not every student on any of the campuses align with each of those. And I won't pretend that I can adequately represent disabled students. I won't pretend I can adequately represent Asian students. That's just not me. And the way to ratify that would be to implement justice groups, so disabled justice groups, queer justice groups, trans justice groups, and to make sure that I'm surrounding myself and learning from people that are from these backgrounds that I am not from, and being able to adequately represent students that way by being with students, learning from students, and cultivating the community that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on to Raf.
Yeah, okay. So with this, I think that the biggest challenge, like one of my candidates said, was trying to make sure every group is represented. Because again, I'm a Black student, but you know, I can't really act on, say, a trans student's plight, or say, you know, someone who, you know, women liberation groups. And I think that the way that I need to go and tackle that is if I have a lot of external forces coming in to help. So I know that we had a sexual liaison officer here at this uni, and I think that for, you know, sexual violence especially, that's something that can definitely benefit a lot of people who are victims of sexual violence. But I think that we also need to go directly to people who have not only experienced it, but feel that there are ways that they would have been able to benefit if there were things put in place. So I think that in order to tackle things like that, I would need to work alongside people and put their voice forward to go and say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is the way that we can basically combat this thing. And then we just follow suit. So it's more collaboration thing rather than me going off of an assumption of what I think is best. Because essentially this whole thing is making sure that all of you guys are represented well and your voices are heard.
Thanks, Raf. So we have had the third candidate from Kent. So I'm going to go over now and introduce Courtney Jade Cooper. So Courtney, if you'd like to give a 1-minute introduction about yourself.
Hi, I'm Courtney Jade Cooper. I'm from Rochester, UCA. Actually, what exactly am I meant to say on this bit specifically?
Yeah, no problem, Courtney. So you're just going to introduce yourself and a little bit about your manifesto, and just have about a minute to do so, and then I'll ask you the first question. Thank you.
Oh wait, one.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, it's just I have really bad social anxiety, so it kind of makes it hard to think straight. So is there a way you could ask me something, because it's a lot easier for me to answer?
Yeah, of course. So Courtney, tell me a bit about yourself and why you ran for the role.
Well, I ran for the role because I wanted to help students, and in general kind of everyone, in becoming equal and having their voices heard. Because I feel like sometimes, like with me and my anxiety, I feel like some people are too scared to say what they need to say, or something that's worrying them or making them uncomfortable. And I want to be someone that can talk to them and take down the details and help them so that their voice is heard, no matter if it's a student or a tutor or anyone, just anyone that needs help with something in general or has a worry about something.
Thank you, Courtney. So I've asked the other candidates the first question, so I'll go straight to you and ask for your answer to this question. So what do you see as your greatest challenge if elected as president?
My greatest challenge would be making sure that everyone's voice is heard, like in specific detail, and making sure there is actually justice for everything that they want help with. Because sometimes it's hard, especially if people always have something they need help with or they have a problem with. And I'd want to make sure everyone in every community has whatever their problem is, they can get help with it. But that might be a problem as well, because I might not be able to help everyone. But I feel like if, as I said, things were noted down in like good detail and everyone was treated as equally as important, that it would work really well and everyone's voice would be heard. But I think that would be my greatest challenge, is making sure that everyone is heard.
Yeah, thank you very much. So now I'm going to go on to the second question, and I'm going to ask again in random order. If you would like me to repeat the question, just say and I will do. So UCA students have reported they often don't know what the presidents do during the year. How will you make sure that students know and understand what you're working on throughout the year? We're going to come first to the Surrey candidates and go to Raf first, please.
Okay, so with this question, it's a big part of my manifesto, communication. So as a third year student, being the ones that's affected the most by COVID, because, you know, our grad year, communication was really poor and there was a lack of transparency. And it kind of left us aimless and terrified about what we're going to be doing for our films, if we'd even do it at all. And I think that with the SU, while they've done a lot of great things, a lot of people don't really feel like it's meant for them. It doesn't really feel like they are the liaison that they should be. So the way that I was going to tackle this, one way, was to be doing bi-weekly meeting sessions, similar to what I believe, I think it was Catherine that did, throughout the whole of the of uni for us, Farnham. And basically just have like an open forum, just have people saying their thoughts, speaking their mind. If they have a bunch of complaints, worries, fears, we address them. And I think that the main thing with that is transparency, because a lot of the times we have to go and provide, you know, open-ended questions like we're working on it, or we're not sure, or we're trying. I think that the more information we give out to you, it would make it better. You know, it lets you know that we are actually working on it. And once we have the specifics, then yeah, I think it would just make everything a bit more relaxed and better improve the relationship with us.
Thanks, Raf. So keeping on the Surrey candidates, Gabriel?
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with what Raf has just said. I do want to touch a little bit on what Sol said earlier, on the fact that the SU is by students, for students. And I feel like myself included, a lot of us don't know that. And a lot of us really don't have that transparency on the fact that the SU is only for students. I think there is a lot of work that can be done on the social media side of things. Working at the SU, I know that we use our Instagram to mainly just post on our stories and on the timeline, but really utilizing the live function and being able to talk to people one-on-one in a Q&A sort of session, kind of like the 2-week thing that Raf was pointing out, but even more consistent. And on top of that, when I joined last year as a direct entry student, I didn't really realize that the president was a student and had just graduated. So making sure that the students that are just coming in and the students that are on campus already understand that the presidents were once in your spot, in your shoes, and they, you know, went through the same processes that you're going through, that students are going through. And really being able to see the presidents on campus, in the canteen, at the SU events, and helping students realize that the president is there for them and the SU is there for them and it's made by them. So just really integrating the SU again with the student community and helping people understand that it is just for students. It's not for the staff, it's not for the institution, it is there to support the students.
Thank you very much. So now on to the Kent candidates. We'll come first to Sol.
So I feel like I've been one of those people that haven't really seen or heard about the student union in general. The student union do really good things, but I didn't really see or notice any of that until I recently decided to get involved myself. I've been here for 3 years. You know, I've always been interested in politics and making a change, and I had a careers meeting discussing that, and that's when I was told about the position and what it entails. So communication to me seems kind of one way. So the student union definitely hears the students, but they don't necessarily give feedback on the response. So if I was elected, I would like to have some sort of platform where we can provide a sort of you said, we did, you know, like here are the concerns right now, here is what we could do about it, and here is what we actually ended up doing about it, so that the students could see what the student union actually has done for them throughout the year and make that platform really accessible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And keeping on the Kent campuses, we'll go next to Courtney.
Well, I in general haven't really, like myself as well, hadn't really heard much about it in general either, and no one had really spoken about the student union or anything like that. And I think the best way to kind of get it out there would be via social media, especially for the younger students as well, because that's mainly where I go, and actually communicating with them properly and in a way that suits them so that they are more interested, like making it better for that kind of audience for them so that they know more about it and it's not something new, because I didn't know anything about this. I found out via things like emails and stuff like that, but I didn't actually know anything about it. No one in my class spoke about it or anything like that. But I think the best way, kind of on the same page as them, is that social media would be the best way for them to find out about it and know more information about it as well.
Thank you very much. And then lastly, on to Admire.
Thank you. I think that for students to know what presidents are doing is to make change on the ground by taking action that students can see and feel. Then they know what the presidents are actually doing. And also, starting in the new academic year, there's going to be, all presidents will be more accountable for the work that they are doing. And they'll be standing up in front of the executive committee. And this executive committee is made up of students, you know, so because I submitted this motion for this to happen because I feel that presidents, they're not really accountable for what they're actually doing. So with this, I think that will make it more transparent to what the president is actually doing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Admire. So now we are going to open the floor up to discussion. So I'm going to ask the group if they would like to debate to any of the points that other candidates have made. If you would like to request, put up your hand and then I'll. So I'll give you 10 seconds if anybody would like to debate. If not, we'll move on to the next question. Great. Well, thank you very much. On to the third question. So the third question is, with the lines often blurred, how will you uphold freedom of speech within UCA? We're going to come to the Kent campuses first and start with Courtney.
Can I just ask something quickly?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if this will affect this, but my anxiety is really bad and I'm kind of struggling a little bit right now.
That's completely fine. If you don't want to answer the question straight away, we can come to you towards the end if you prefer that. Or if not, if you don't want to answer the question, just say that you don't want to and we'll move on to the next person. That's not a problem.
Is there a way I could write it down somewhere? It's just I'm not really good in these situations to think straight because I get so anxious.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure there's something that we can work out after the stream has ended and we can put your responses to the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. No worries. Would you like to answer this question or should we go straight on to the next one?
Next one.
Okay, brilliant. So on to Sol. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I remember the question. Thank you. So I personally feel like the lines aren't really blurred. I feel like freedom of speech is pretty straightforward, but there is a big difference between freedom of speech and the guarantee of a platform. If I'm elected, I would work to make sure that every person's voice is heard, and it's guaranteed that that you can voice whatever you want to say. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the student union would endorse or provide you a platform. So in UK law, freedom of speech is protected, but certain types of speech are illegal, like hate speech and discriminatory speech. So the student union has to represent the best of the students, and it has to provide representation for all students, and that includes minority students. So you can say what you like, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have a platform. We need to be able to protect the minority students from things like hate speech and discrimination. But, you know, obviously, you can say what you want, doesn't necessarily mean you have a platform for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol. Next on to Admire.
Thank you. On that question, I think we are living in a very unique times in the world. You know, like the left side of things feels polarized and the right side of things feels polarized. You know, this is the first time it's ever happened that both sides feel polarized. And the best way of achieving something from this is to provide the platform for both sides, because everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even if you don't agree with it, you know, because it reminds me, because I grew up in the 90s, you know, like back then, if you didn't, people did not agree with each other on certain issues, but then that did not mean that they didn't have anything in common. The weird thing was they had more things in common than they disagreed with, you know, even if they didn't agree on something, you know, but they agreed more on many things. So providing a platform for both sides will realize that they actually have the same thing in common. So hopefully that will bring people together by doing that, instead of just picking one side over one side. Thank you.
Thank you, Admire. On to the Surrey candidates now. We'll come first to Gabriel.
Thank you. Yeah, the way that I think about this question is I greatly agree with Sol in the fact that freedom of speech is allowed and is sanctioned by the government in this country, but that does not mean you get a platform. However, I want to take a step back in my campaign and my platform. I want to think about the fact that hate speech and discriminatory speech starts from an unsettling platform, a shaking platform, an ideology that is hurtful and is unfortunate. And so I really would like to think about the scaffolding of our conversations. And I really want to start by creating a culture of uplifting and of collaboration, and also being comfortable with realizing we're wrong in some situations and being able to be re-educated and being willing to be re-educated. My dad always says, you can't build a sturdy house on a foundation that isn't firm. And so I really want to, you know, cut down the levels and really get to that foundation and see why, you know, the things people say are hurtful or upsetting or are sanctioned by freedom of speech, but are hurtful speech and hate speech. And so I really want to look back at the culture we're creating on campus and why those things are happening, and allowing freedom of speech to happen because it is our freedom, but making sure that we understand why we're saying the things we are saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. So finally, on to Raf.
Yeah. Could I make a suggestion quickly that may help Courtney out, or do I not have time?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So I was just on a night shoot and I wasn't sure if I'd make it here, but Sophie said that I could record myself saying the questions, if that may be an option to maybe help her out with this. You can shoot me down, but I won't cry.
You know, we can definitely work something out after the fact of the live stream.
Okay, cool. I'll just go on the question. I really like this one because it got me thinking. First off, I think the blur in the lines section was a good thing to mention, because freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequences. And like Gabriel and a few others have said, you know, freedom of speech also includes hate speech and, you know, discrimination and things. And with my experiences here at this uni, a lot of people don't really know they don't really understand that freedom of speech and freedom of consequences, they're not like together, you know, they're separate. You can say things, actions have consequences. So I think initially I would have it very clear of what, you know, the rules and the policies are against things like hate speech and discrimination, because there's been a lot of people here that have said a lot of really questionable things but because they haven't really been educated or told like the rules and the policies that the uni have in place, they think that they can just say things with no filter. Now, the thing with the platform is that, you know, you can't really, freedom of speech is free. I think that it's good that for the majority, for the most part, people don't get ostracized for their religion or their sexuality or anything. And I think that having a platform is important. Like everyone said, not everyone can get a platform. So it's really just trying to go and find a way to have an open conversation about things rather than splintering it up. Because I think that when we have it open and then it's a discussion, then things can devolve from, you know, not being as aggressive hate speech and rising with negativity, and it can just be a conversation of understanding. So again, as I said, with the communication part of my manifesto and having like the open forums, stuff like that, it could just be on a Discord server, it could be through something else on social media, or even just an event at the uni. Like there's a bunch of different ways that we can provide platforms for things, but first we need to get the rules down so everyone is aware of how it should go down. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raf. So again, I'm going to open up the floor for anybody to debate any of the answers that have been said or add your opinion. If you would like, please raise your hand. If not, then just shake your head. Yes, so?
I just want to quickly mention or quickly comment that hate speech and discriminatory speech is separate from freedom of speech. Yeah, I just thought that was an important distinguish. Sorry, second language.
Yes, Raf?
Yeah, I thought it was important to distinguish those two, that they are separate from each other and that hate speech is illegal. And we have to, you know, like you can make sure people get consequences for that without damaging freedom of speech. That's it. Thank you.
Raf, yes?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's a very good point. My main thing is that people don't always understand that. You know, freedom of speech, they think it's very literal. I can say anything that I want. But as you said, hate speech is illegal. And I think that a lot of people don't really know that, like yourself. They don't really know that they are two separate things, which is why I think we need to start there and just say this and this, they're not together.
Absolutely, I agree.
Thank you. So if nobody's got anything else, I'll go on to the third question. Fourth question. So the fourth question is, what is one thing you've learned from the past year and how would you use that being president? We'll come first to the Surrey candidates. Gabriel?
Yeah, thank you. So again, as a direct entry student last year, I went straight into this uni and was immediately hit by COVID. And whether you're an introvert or an ambivert or an extrovert or don't align yourself with any of those labels, I think we can all understand that the isolation we have felt during this year has been terrible and debilitating. And at least for me, and I hope other people as well, we've come to realize that community is a necessity. Even before COVID as well, I came to this university with the thought that I was going to be entering a collaborative, creative community that was uplifting and was cultivating a culture of amazing creative energy. And I didn't feel that when I first came here. And that was so important to me. And I felt like I was missing out on something that I should have had and something I should have experienced. And again, that was just bolstered by COVID-19. So like I said, community is a necessity, and a part of my manifesto and my whole campaign is centered around really, really cultivating that culture of collaboration, especially in the creative field where it's all dog eat dog out there. We need to be in a place where we're all uplifting each other. And yes, we may have critiques on other people's work, or we may say, you know, hey, maybe that's not the most PC thing you can say or something like that. We're in a world where language is changing. So we always have to be ready to be educated and willing to learn on those fronts, but just creating a community where we're all happy to be here and even just content to be here and just content to be in a space where we feel safe and welcomed, and that our work matters and we matter. Community is something we need, and it's something that we have lost and weren't even given. Community is the necessity.
Thank you. Next on to Raf.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that it was pretty much exactly what Gabriel said. During the lockdown, I realized how split up and just splintered that the community was, and how, you know, people are really divided. The mutual aid scheme actually kind of improved that. Sorry about my house space. Yeah, the mutual aid scheme actually really helped that strengthen it a bit, because it's people helping out each other. And in particular with my course, there was a point, I'd say around year 2, it's like a year and a half ago, where I stepped back and said to myself, we should have all of the tools available here. Like we do. We have people from photography who can, you know, take photos for promotional things. In this case, for like making a film. We have like graphic designers, we have illustrators and animators. We have all these people that we should be getting people from different crews and collaborating and just making a bunch of projects with like-minded people. But that doesn't really happen here. I was one of the organizers and creators of the Farnham Film Festival that happened here in November 2019. The years have been blurring, especially because of COVID. But that was great to kind of see the outcome, because there was people there who were quiet or shy or timid, and then they had their films up, and like people were like, oh yeah, that was amazing. And then they got people's DLs, and then they were like cross-crewing and doing films together now. And it's just kind of upsetting that even before COVID, that wasn't existent. So one part of my campaign again was like just bringing that community together. And I was like, okay, this is a sign, because of the theme of reconnecting. And there's a bunch of things I have in place, like having cultural fairs where people from different cultures can actually express themselves and invite people around to basically, you know, have an experience with what their life is like, and vice versa, find things to relate to, find different ways to socialize and engage with each other. So yeah, this was a really important part of my manifesto, and especially COVID kind of really highlighted how important it is.
Thanks, Raf. We'll go now over to the Kent candidates. I'd just like to say before we go on, thank you very much, Courtney, for joining the stream. We'll make sure that your answers are recorded and then published after this stream ends, and we hope that you're okay. We understand that something like this can be quite daunting and quite challenging, so thank you very much for joining. On to Sol, please, if that's okay.
The last year, because of the crisis of the pandemic and everything, it has really highlighted to me that my UCA and the other online resources isn't fit for purpose. So I find it quite difficult to find things. You know, the software doesn't act how you think it should. Finding resources is really difficult. And, you know, I'm a student who's privileged in the way that even though I'm an international student and English is my second language, I am fluent in English, and I don't have things like learning disabilities or dyslexia, etc. But I still struggled a lot with all of the online resources, especially after everything was done online. So I can't even imagine how hard it must be for people who may have learning disabilities or who English isn't their first language. And, you know, as a university with a commitment to equality and diversity, I think that's something that we should definitely, you know, work on, and they need to do better, and we could be better. And if elected, that's something that I would work on quite a bit. It's a big part of my manifesto that the online resources are quite poor and lacking in many ways, and quite difficult to work with. So that's something I would definitely work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol. And finally, on to Admire.
Oh, this year, one of the main things I've learned the most is empathy, you know, because I graduated in 2020, and my experience is different to what is happening now. When I was there, you know, we were all in the studios students everywhere. We could access workshop anytime, you know, anytime you wanted to. You can book a space a week in advance, and you can do all that stuff. And now students, they've not been able to do that this year. And I really feel for them, you know, so I really empathize with them. However, I've also learned that students, they're quite resilient, you know, in how they've adapted creating their work, you know, and they've carried on working considering with all the situation. They've continued doing what they were doing with their studies, which is pretty amazing, you know. Because if I was in their position right now, I don't know how I would have survived it, to be honest, you know. So I really respect all these students who are like studying right now, how resilient they are. That's one of the other things I've learned. And also communication, that communication is very important. Especially, for example, at the beginning of this year when the lockdown happened again, students didn't know what was happening, and the university did not know how students were feeling. So through that communication, you know, through January and February, both sides, you know, they actually felt that they're on the same page, things are moving forward. So communication is very important, and if elected again, I want to continue doing that because it's very important. Because, like, for example, just like what Saul said, like how the software sometimes it does not work properly. Yeah, I know that. I was a student. I used to struggle with it. You know, one day I'll find something, and then the next day I cannot find it. And without also the other thing that I've realized, students that they say these things, right? And then the university that they say that students don't engage. So there's this miscommunication between students and university. So that is also one thing that I want to improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Admire. So again, I'm going to open the floor for discussion. If anybody would like to respond to any of the comments said, if not, then please just shake your head and we'll move on. Yes, Raf.
Yeah, I just want to say that I really agreed with Sol's point about just the online resources. Accessibility is a big part of it, especially with international students who English isn't their first language. And I think that the support for them, especially in classes where, you know, they need things translated, for example, is severely lacking. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Thank you. So on to the fifth question. What is one campaign that UCASU has worked on that you would like to continue, and how would you do so? We're going to come first to the Kent candidates, and Admire, please, if that's okay.
I will start with I'll continue with the Student Deserve Better campaign, because this campaign is very important for all students because it affects all students. You know, some students, because come January, when lockdown happened, some students don't live in the city where the campus is. So they were stuck at home, and they were still supposed to pay rent on their like university accommodation. And with that, so with this campaign, I'll continue with it. We're working with NUS because we have been collaborating with NUS and also working with the university to how we can better the experience of the students. Like what I said earlier, that COVID is going to be with us for a good number of years to come, and the university needs to turn on its axis and adapt to cater for all students somehow. I don't know, and that's, but even if I don't know, I don't have the answer right now, but I believe that we have to take action, and through that process, the solution would reveal itself, you know. So we just have to keep on working towards it instead of just not doing anything. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Admire. Now on to Sol.
Thank you. So I have to be completely transparent and say that I actually haven't seen any campaigns. I haven't seen much from the student union in general. And, you know, I'm sure I've seen posters, I'm sure I've seen emails, but they're kind of hiding between a million other posters and a million other emails. But however, I think it would be sensible for whoever wins to take stock of everything the student union has done, not only last year, but maybe a couple years back as well. There's bound to be some things there that have worked in the past that can be built on, and maybe something that was a really good idea that was never seen through or given resources, etc. And then I would also work to make things like the posters, like the online posts, like the emails, feel a little bit more personal, a little bit less formal. Personally, in my opinion, I see a lot of these posts and they kind of look like advertisement, or they kind of look like, again, like they're a part of the university and not a separate entity. So I would try and work to make it just seem a little bit more personal and inviting for the students. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sol. So now we'll go on to the Surrey candidates, first with Raf.
Okay, so if I had to choose one, I would definitely say the Action for Black Students campaign. I think that Sol, despite not knowing about a lot of the campaigns that's been going on, has made a very good, has really just pinpointed a big problem with things, because I do know that there was a climate change one, the Action for Black Students, and I believe there was another one that was being advertised at the youth from uni around February, April time. And I took a step back to see how that would be put in motion, but it just seemed like it was still developing and wasn't being expressed or brought out to everyone on the uni. And I've been speaking to people, Black students, a lot of activists as well, because a lot of people at the UCA Farnham are really into climate change and wanting to try and save the environment. And a lot of them kind of looked at me crazy, they're like, what are you talking about? No, I've never heard about stuff like this. So if I was president, what I would do is really just push the Action for Black Students campaign forward. Just really make it clear to everyone what is going on, what we're doing. And also, it needs to start again, with the freedom of speech, with a conversation, educating, informing people, because I was one of the co-organizers for the Black Lives Matter protest last year around June, July-ish, and it was a pretty difficult sight. It wasn't good for me mentally, but the biggest takeaway was seeing how people from different backgrounds, white, Black, Asian, there's all these people from around coming for this one cause, and it made me feel a lot more accepted seeing that. But it didn't really seem like that is a thing that has been at this uni. I was speaking to someone who confided in me that she doesn't feel like she's represented as a Black student. She doesn't feel like she gets the same amount of priority or concern when she wants to express her work and just celebrate it and just let people see it. And from other experiences, seeing a lot of the Black-led events at the SU, it doesn't really seem like there is the same amount of care going into promoting it from the SU, because maybe it doesn't seem like it's the most profitable. 2018 actually was a pretty off year for Black History Month, especially considering how the SU would promote one event, and that would end up being the biggest SU event during Black History Month, and that was the Harry Potter quiz night. And yeah, the SU can't dictate who comes to what, but there was a very, very, very clear focus on, okay, we want to push this more. And I just feel like we need to take a step back and just put people who are kind of in the background in the forefront. Thank you.
Thanks, Raf. And then on to the final candidate, which is Gabriel.
Thank you. Sol mentioned that she as one of the many students that haven't seen the campaigns coming from the SU. And I'll be honest, I am very privileged in that respect. Working at the SU, I see almost everything that comes out of the union. And that being said, one of the most impactful things that I've seen happening this year is actually one of Admire's projects. Admire has been working to decolonize the library. And when I say decolonize, I'm meaning to de-Westernize, or to take away the lens that is specifically put onto cis white male creatives and opening it up to other voices and other artists and other creatives. And I so respect this project, and it is something that has needed to be done since the beginning of time. And for me, I would take that project, and again, working with the NUS, and to explain, that's the National Union for Students, which is kind of like an SU for SUs. I was also able to be the LGBTQ plus delegate for the NUS Liberation Conference this year. So I got to talk to other NUS delegates and the NUS Liberation team as well about this program that they're going through currently this year, which is decolonizing education. And so to take on from Admire's point, instead of just sticking to the library, I want to decolonize all creative education. And design specifically, we come into our practice and we learn about Milton Glaser and we learn about Paula Shore, who are amazing, amazing designers, but they are white designers. And a lot of the content we get is from white male or female designers. And I really believe we need to center the voices of Black designers or creatives. We need to center the voices of queer creatives, trans creatives. I want to see people that look like me in my field. I want to learn from people that look like me, that have gone through the things I have gone through in my field. And I'm sure that other students feel the same way as well. We want to see queer illustrators. We want to see trans filmmakers. We want to see, you know, Asian filmmakers and Asian musicians and Latinx musicians. We want to see more than just what Western education believes is the prime model. And so moving to decolonize and cancel colonial curriculums is what I would like to do.
Thank you, Gabriel. So again, I'm going to open up the floor to any candidates who would like to add their thoughts. Please put your hand up if you would like to. If not, then we'll move on. Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, Raf?
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wholeheartedly agree with Gabriel. It's a big thing trying to, like, seeing people like you that's thriving in the field that you want to go into, because as a Black person, I would be told by my mum I'd need to work twice as hard as this person or that person to get noticed, or, you know, things like this, what I'm trying to achieve, are very slim because, you know, of the like field that's dominated mostly by white men. And I think, to add on to what Gabriel was saying, in order to decolonize it, a big part of it is to just make it frequent. So don't just do Black History Month and done. You know, don't just do Pride Month and done. I feel like that's more, I don't know, that seems like it's a bit more of a disrespecting than anything else, because it's like, oh, you're just doing this out of obligation rather than you feel like this is something that should be done. So yeah, I just think that whoever is the president of all of us, or whoever too, it just needs to be a big thing where this is a thing that is going to keep going rather than just being a one and done.
If I can add on to that, I completely agree. This needs to be a continuous conversation. It can't just be a single month. It can't just be a single day. This needs to be in our conversations at all times. And I also want to thank Admire for starting this conversation in our university and helping to make our voices heard and helping to decolonize our resources and helping to really center different voices in our curriculum. So thank you.
You know, welcome, Gabriel. And saying, picking up from what you said, the project is like mutated into something else. It is no longer just a library now, because it has also mutated into like photography, because they have a unit called storytelling. So that they're changing the narratives, because my main problem was the narrative of how Black people are narrated in films, magazines, everywhere you look. So it's about changing that narrative. So when children, like now when they study, they just see the narratives of like white man. Those are the books they get. So from the library and their research, everything will just feed from one place. Yeah. So yeah, pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you all. Yes, Raf?
If I can just add on to what you were both saying, and then Gabriel, I think that's another thing that a lot of people have really come to me towards when talking about decolonize word.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
It's a lot of syllables, but is trying to get more of a diverse staff at the uni. And there's a lot of hesitation with me, because it's like, are we hiring someone just because of their ethnicity or sexuality or whatnot over their skill? But then I have to stop myself and think, well, no, it's both. It can be both. I think that when we are going through film studies in our year, there was like a part talking about the dysphoria and like just Jamaica and like Caribbean cinema and everything. And the lecturer was a white lecturer, and he's like the nicest person I know, and he's very informative about. He knows all the stuff, but I can't really have that conversation with him, because it's like I feel like I should be having it with someone whose history kind of shares it. And I just think that if we're able to diversify the staff in a way where it's trying to get the best people for the best job, whose experiences also help, that will be another big thing to work on as well.
I completely agree. It's all about making sure that platform is steady and that the people that are speaking are the people that are learned in that situation. Definitely.
So thank you all for your answers to questions. We are now going to go into some questions from the live stream, and I'm going to invite Catherine back onto the screen to explain how these live stream questions will work and who will answer first, etc.
Great. Thank you all very much indeed. Can I just say before I go forward, I have listened with great humility to everything that all of you are saying. It's been a real privilege to hear what has been important for you and what you want to take forward. So it's my job to bring to you some questions that have been submitted from the audience during the debate, and to give you the opportunity to speak or choose not to in relation to what's been put forward. So if you can just indicate if you feel you've got something to say. So our first question comes from a Farnham-based student. This is from Anton Arenko, and Anton has asked, if you agree with the principle of freedom of speech, would it not be vital to set up a platform and encourage ideas for people to learn? So if I can just hear from anyone who feels they would want to respond to that. So.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really good idea. As someone of privilege, in many areas, everyone can't speak for everyone, and I think something like that, where we have a platform where people from the specific backgrounds can speak about their experiences and educate people on certain issues. I feel like that would be a great addition to the university, and to really help center the voices of minorities. And yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's something that we definitely should work toward. But keeping in mind, like Raf said, not having a white cis man talk about, transgender woman issues. We have to really center the people who know what they're talking about and come from that experience, those experiences.
That's really helpful, Sol. Thank you. Would anybody else from the candidates want to contribute? Admire, I can see your hands up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, just from what I said earlier, that both sides of the spectrum, they feel polarized. So creating a platform where they can all share their ideas, a safe space. Because if you just listen to one side and then isolate the other side, they just make more problems. So you have to create a platform for both sides to have that platform. Yeah.
Thank you, Admire. And Gabrielle?
Yeah, I would just like to tack on to that as well. I had the opportunity to create the digital UCASU, which is the SU Discord. And we have had a lot of opportunities to learn from each other and just listen to what each other had to say on that platform. However, I do believe it can definitely manifest into a platform where we create an educated space, an educating space, and a safe space as that, a place where we can learn perspectives that we don't know and even give our insight to questions that people may have. However, whoever becomes president, we have to make sure that it does not become a place where we just go to Black people or people of color to ask them about their experiences. We are all able to educate ourselves on this front, and we are all able to do our own research. Google is accessible, Bing is accessible. You can do the research you need to do. So we have to make sure it doesn't just become a go to your Black friend and ask them what matters. It has to be a collaborative effort, and it has to be a two-way street in that respect.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And I can see Raf has raised his hand. Go for it.
Could you quickly repeat Anton's question just so I don't end up paraphrasing and getting it wrong?
Of course, no problem at all. So Anton has said, if you agree with the principle of freedom of speech, would it not be vital to set up a platform and encourage ideas and for people to learn?
Okay, great. First off, Anton, good to hear from you. Nice to see that there's people in France that's watching this. Second off, yeah, that kind of really goes back to what I was saying about it, like having to educate people first about. It's really difficult because the way I'm saying it is like we need to treat people like they're dumb, but it's more so that people have different experiences, so their understanding about things aren't, like your own, or it's very different. For example, there are a few people I know that's in my year who have never met a Black person before because of where they're from, and then they would, like, one particular person would come up to me and mention that they studied slavery and they felt really bad about it and stuff like that, but they felt very uncomfortable and like worried about saying something like that because they thought that they would be chastised for coming to a conclusion like that, even though there wasn't necessarily a way that they would have been educated on it beforehand based on their environment and their experiences in like the education system. So going back to Anton's point, I do think that there is a fine balance between trying to have a platform where everyone can present their ideas and stuff, and then having to react to like the ones that are pretty much hate speech, and that can filter out the important ones where people need to be educated, and compare it to having there be set rules and limitations where people who are unsure or need to be educated about certain things can't say their piece. So if we just have a platform that's kind of like Gabriel was saying, the groundwork of the house, and then it can splinter off into new ideas and conversations, then that would be good. I hope that makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah, I think going off of that, just cultivating that culture of empathy is what's needed in any setting, not just our university, in the world at large. So definitely, yes.
Thank you all. Oh, Sol, go for it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with everyone, with everything you all been saying. So, like we've been saying, a lot during this, all of us. Community is a big thing, and this university is all the students, and all the students will come from different backgrounds and come from different privilege, or the opposite. I could never speak on behalf of a Black person. I could only speak on behalf of the fact that I'm a woman, that I'm queer, working class, things like that, and I feel like everyone needs to be a part of that conversation. And going back to my previous point of cultivating more community and more engagement from the students, I feel like that will definitely help in promoting these very important conversations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Just a little comment from me. I hear a culture of empathy from all of the candidates tonight. I hear you self-supporting and supporting each other. And I think that is evidence of real community. So thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to move to Harry, and I don't know which campus Harry sits on, but another great question, Harry, and that is to all of you. How will you tackle student mental health in the wake of the pandemic? So who'd like to speak to that? Raf, I've seen your hand go up. Go for it.
That was a great question, Harry. You'll need to give me a second, because that's another big part of my manifesto. But I need to take those words and make sure I'm saying them correctly. So I've been very fortunate that my life hasn't necessarily changed since COVID started, because I work at a pizza place. I won't say which one, so the rival gang doesn't know. But my day-to-day is doing uni work, going to work, coming back, and that's kind of how it's been. And I know that there's a few people who I'm friends with who haven't been able to go home over like the Christmas holidays, or like, that COVID has essentially forced them to be stuck here. And I think that tackling the mental health kind of means that we need to take a look at everything we have that's available. When I was a course rep in first year, I remember a very alarming thing I think one of the lecturers mentioned was that the inquiries and the I know how you say it, like the amount of people that went to Gateway was way more than they were able to handle. And that is definitely the case now, because COVID is a thing that kind of just was dropped on us, and we've kind of had to adapt rather than prepare for it. Even though we've had lockdown, out of lockdown, lockdown, it's still kind of been different and varied. And I think that in order to improve students' mental health, there's a lot of different things that I was looking into. So looking into communicating the different services that's available to them. Like I think the well-being one, which there's people in my year who's been here since year zero, and I told them about it like a week ago. They're like, wait, what? Just things that, you know, is available to more people, and especially like the mutual aid scheme is the perfect example of like how students' mental health can be improved just by other students. And I was trying to think of different ways that we can improve that and how we can kind of implement that more into like just Gateway services and everything. So at least there's other options where if at some point for some reason the SU isn't available, then at least students have a way to reach out to each other.
Thank you, Raf, for that. Anyone else want to speak to this question or speak some more? Gabriel?
Yeah, thank you. I also want to kind of jump off of what Raf has just said. I currently or recently have just applied for the counseling service at UCA and was kind of thrown back by the fact that you're only allowed 6 sessions. And as an international student and coming to the UK with no knowledge of the NHS and how anything works in terms of anything, I was just confused on how all of this works. And I do not believe that 6 sessions is going to do anything really for anyone. It'll help, definitely, but it won't do what it needs to do. And a part of my manifesto is strengthening student support. And so the things that I would like to see happen are an extension of those things, of the sessions that are available through the UCA counseling service. And also, like Raf has said, kind of creating that yellow pages of resources for people to get access to, whether that's around the campus, on the campus, through the UK in general. There's also, online services. The NHS has Talk Plus, things like that. So just creating accessibility for resources in terms of mitigating mental health challenges.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. And Raf, I can see your hand is up, and then Admire. So Raf, if you go for it. Raf?
Oh, okay. It just froze for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it.
You're not BT, it's fine. I want to hop up on what you were saying. I think you made a very, very, very good point about the six weeks, you said, for the counselling. A few people did mention that to me. And for the long-term issues, it doesn't help. And, full transparency, there's a lot of things that I'm struggling to think of to try and combat some of the mental health issues, because a lot of it comes from resources, budgetary stuff, money essentially. And while I don't know what the budget is for the SU currently, I'm going to go and say this live and just say, I assume, I could be wrong, that it's going to be significantly lower than it would be, say, this year, mainly because COVID has kind of taken away what I believe is their main resource for money. So looking into how different things are, I think that it would be very tricky. But again, we kind of need to start from home and seeing what we can do to help students do, things to help each other. I think going back to what Sol said about the online resources, I think something you touched on, Gabriel, that it's hard to really navigate. I went on there the other day to try and, get my bearings and just see what would be available to someone who is an international student. That's not me. And it was really worrying, because it wasn't a lot. There were pages on there that was a couple sentences long, and some of them did have referrals to places, but we need to assume that a lot of students can't navigate it like us. I think you two are international students, I believe you said, correct me if I'm wrong. And I guess you two are lucky that English comes naturally to you, or it seems like it does. But there has been people I've worked with on films and stuff who are really, really struggling, and not even just with the course, but just mentally trying to relate to people, similar to how we're talking about, say, having diversity in the staffing where we can relate to some people. It's hard for that to happen with international students. So I say, if there was one thing that should be implemented first to really improve this, is to really look into how we can improve the resources given to international students. I do know that there's a lot of universities that set up their own international 24/7 line just for the out of hour times, because I do know there were a few people who started this year who are still trying to get used to the time zone and would stay up until 5 a.m. and then go to bed at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. So if we can immediately start trying to combat that, because they're going to be here immediately, and mental health can't wait. So I want to say.
Super, thank you very much indeed. And I think, Admire, you were keen to come in on this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, it would be to work more hand in hand with the Gateway team, promoting all Gateway services, because when I first started the last term, the BEM community was heavily affected by COVID. So with that, I worked with one of the councillors in Panama, Aisha Mills, to set up a BEM COVID drop-in. So we did some drop-in and workshops, and we're still doing them now. They're still going on, and we just need to work together in promoting them, because the services are there. It's just accessing them. That's the problem. So more promotion for students to know about these services, because all these services are there for the students, and it is our job to make sure that students access these services. So that's my answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any more on this topic? Saul?
Can I just very quickly say that I'm still at university right now, and I will be kicked out in 15 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, just like if I suddenly disappear, that's why.
Well, then I think that's a really good prompt, actually. So thank you. I'm keeping a close eye on time. We've got one other question, and I think this is a fantastic question, actually, for all of you to think about. It's from Sabina, and Sabina is a Farnham-based student. And the question is, what does leadership mean to you? So who'd like to speak to that? I've got Admire's hand shot up, so go for it then, Gabriel.
For me, is putting the people that you represent first. My needs have to come second. The person I represent, their needs have to come first. So that's how I see. That's what I think leadership means. That's for me anyway.
Thank you. Gabriel, you want to come next, and then I think we've got Saul. Go for it, Gabriel.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is leadership is not from the front, leadership is not from the back, leadership is not from above, it is not from below, leadership is from within. And being a leader specifically means knowing when you're not the right person to be in the lead. It means knowing when to make a hard decision. It means knowing when you're not the right person to make the decision, and uplifting the voices of those who are the right person and the right people and the right group of people. Leadership comes from when we create a community of people that are excited and are ready to move forward and want to do something. And leadership means facilitating that and cultivating that and pushing that forward from within, not from anywhere else.
Thank you. And Saul, would you like to speak to this one?
Yeah, so I think, to me, leadership, is about being fair and, like Admire said, putting the people that you are leading first, putting the students first, and being fair and being honest and transparent, and making sure that if you mess up, you're honest and transparent about it. If there's something, like Gabriel said, if there's something that you can't speak on, making sure that you have the right people to speak about it, and just making sure that you are doing everything in the best interest of the people that you are leading, and using your power, so-called, for the right things, and using it for, good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Raf, I knew you wouldn't let me down. You put your hand up.
Sorry, it just really stumped me because I was struggling to put it into words. But yeah, it's a great question. I think that leadership is a lot of things, to be honest. Pretty much what all the candidates said. But to me, it just means, I guess, taking responsibility and taking charge, like bringing people together to go and do a specific thing, show them the right path to do something. It can be small stuff as well, like, suggesting an idea, being proactive with something. I think that everyone has been a leader at some point in their lives. I believe that the world would not be the same that it is without one person not being there. We all matter in a way. We're all responsible for creating change. And I feel like for this role specifically, it's really just embodying all of the students' like worries, fears, and their voice, and just come together to go and channel it through in a way that makes everything to leave a positive change. I would say an example being something like you know, trying to create something that allows other people to flourish, you know, crawling so other people can run, starting liberation groups. So then when someone comes later on in the year or, you know, a decade time, they can feel comfortable and not experience the things that we've experienced. Having ideas and working through trauma and trying to find a way to use that trauma to combat the things that you've gone through. That's leadership, you know, even if it's a thing where you come out and speak about what you've been experiencing, even if it's something where you're going to someone and saying, hey, this isn't right, or this is what's happened to me, or I am not okay. It's leadership, because people influence people, and there's a lot of little things that happen in the world that inspire people. You know, the film festival, for example, there was one film that I saw that was like a YouTube film, and it was just a guy dancing, and like it was so awe-inspiring because this is what someone's created. This is them being a leader by putting out the things that they want to see. And now I think about that. It was like 2 years ago, and I'll be walking to work. I'll accidentally burn my hand on the oven at work or something. And I think about that, and it just opened my horizons to things. So leadership is just really expressing yourself to me. Yeah.
Thank you all. I think we're coming probably towards the end of this presidential debate. I'm conscious that Saul is watching the clock carefully. I would like to say, I think you're all leaders. You've all shown tremendous leadership this evening. So I would like to say good luck to all of you in the forthcoming debate, and to thank you for your contributions this evening. I'd also like to thank those who've watched tonight. Again, it's been very, very important that we've had an audience and that people have seen what candidates have wanted to say and heard and listened, and also contributed their questions to the candidates. So thank you very much indeed. And I'm now just going to pass over to Callum, who's going to give some details on the actual campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. You can read more about the presidential debate candidates at UCASU.com, and voting will be opening tomorrow at 9 a.m. Just to remind everybody to encourage your courses to vote, as free pizza will be available to every course where 50% of students have voted. And also, once we reach 1,000 votes, one voter will be chosen at random to have 1 month's rent paid. You can vote by going to UCASU.com and logging in with your UCA login. Voting will close at 5 p.m. Friday, and there'll be a live results announcement on Friday evening. Just to correct that, voting opens Thursday at 9 a.m. and closes 5 p.m. this coming Friday.
Great, Callum. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our candidates for being here and for your presence and for your leadership. I'd like to say to everyone, please do vote. This is your opportunity to have representation, and thank you so much for coming. Good night to you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.